What's up, y'all? Alvin here, and today we're going to talk about 5 different reasons you're not catching fish. And I got to admit, I'm totally guilty of number 5.
I tell the good jokes.
Okay, so reason number 1, and this was one that's really sort of surprising nowadays with the internet and social media and all that. But the thing is, a lot of times people are not doing enough research before they go on their trip. So there's all kinds of little details that could make or break your trip that you might or might not know about because of doing research on the internet. So, a quick Google search on where you're going, when you're going, or even more specifically, what type of fish you're going after could reveal something that could really change your trip, either make you decide not to go on the trip or to go somewhere else, or you may realize that some piece of gear, some fly, something that you really need to have before you can make the trip. Even something as simple as a particular license, like say you're going to go fishing and the area that you fished, there was a special license that you had to get, and maybe you couldn't get that license in person. You needed to buy it online. You get there, and then you got to go fish somewhere else. So there's a lot of information that you can get from the internet, or even making a phone call to a local fly shop, that could really make or break your trip. The difference between having a great trip and having a not so great trip. So number 1, make sure you do as much research as you possibly can before you go on your trip. Now, number 2, so you've done a bunch of research, you've got a plan together, and you know exactly what you're gonna do. But something changes. Number 2 is not being able to change your plans even at the last minute. So a perfect example of this was years ago, a buddy and I were planning on going out and fishing super early at a river that we were going to have to make a pretty long drive to. And that morning we got up, this was pre-internet, we got up and looked at the weather radar. And the radar showed some thunderstorms over the river that we were going to go fish. So we decided, at the last minute, this is like 6:45, 5:45, super early in the morning, and we just decided to go somewhere else. Well, what ended up happening, besides the fact we went somewhere else and had a pretty good day of fishing, was that river got a ton of rain, and it went from something like 200 cubic feet per second to over 100,000 cubic feet per second. Not only was the river muddy, but it was a major flood. The area we were going to park our car in was going to be covered with 20 feet of water. There were massive trees washed away, houses washed away, and we had friends calling and looking for us because we were supposed to be on the river that they had just seen on the news at lunchtime that it had a massive flood. We were not there. We were catching fish on a totally different river, clueless as to what we had missed. But we were willing to change our plan at the last minute because it looked like we weren't going to have great fishing, so we went somewhere else. So don't be so married to your plan that you can't change it at the last minute. Could have some great fishing as a result, could not get washed away in a flood. All right, what is number 3? Number 3 is not practicing. So we see this a lot. Us fishing guides see somebody who's planned a big trip. You're going to Colorado, Wyoming, the Texas coast, and they get on the boat with you and they say, well, I haven't fished since the last time we went fishing together. A year ago, 6 months ago, 2 months ago. I haven't picked up my rod. I haven't cast. So what invariably happens is, and not with everybody, some folks are just to the point to where they don't really need to practice. I'm not there yet though, so you should probably practice. So practice your casting, Practice your tying knots. I mean, all those little things that you don't really think about can really make a difference during the day of fishing. So, you're fishing and there's fish rising, or you just missed a fish, or you broke a fish off and you really need to change flies quickly before the bugs stop rising, or, that fish gets out of range and you're fumbling trying to tie a fly on. When if you had to practice that cast, I use the clinch knot because it is quick and easy, and if I need to make a quick fly change, I can change a fly in less than a minute. So practice your casting, practice your knots, and I guarantee you, you will catch more fish than you would if you hadn't have practiced. All right, so if these tips are helping you out, I want to stop for a second and ask you to do something that's going to help me out, and that is to subscribe to this YouTube channel, give the video a thumbs up, and if you really want to stay in touch with me, there's a link to my email sign up. You can sign up for my email list. I won't spam you. I send emails out occasionally about stuff that you may want to know about. My next trip that I'm putting together, that type of stuff. If I put out a really cool video, I may send you an email, so make sure you see the video. YouTube doesn't always remind you. So that's just a couple of easy, free things you can do to help me out. Hopefully this video is helping you out. All right, so what is reason number 4 that you're not catching fish? You're not going. Now that is kind of a funny one, but there's all kinds of different sayings. You can't catch fish off the couch. The only guarantee that you're not going to catch fish is if you don't go. And it's true. So I'm guilty of this sometimes as well. If the weather's not perfect, the conditions aren't perfect, maybe I'll just stay home and mow the grass instead. It's going to be tough out there. The thing is, there's been plenty of times when the conditions were terrible. I was almost certain I wasn't going to catch a fish that day, but I went anyway because I had that day open to fish. And I've had some amazing days on days when conditions weren't perfect. If you wait for conditions to be perfect, there's a lot of times you're just not going to be going fishing. So if you don't go, you don't know. You're not going to catch any fish from the couch. The only way to guarantee you won't catch fish is to not go. So you need to just go. Just get out there. Having a slow day, a tough day on the water, a lot of times will actually make you a better angler. You'll learn more. So sometimes that grind, those tough days, they're actually beneficial. So just go. All right. Reason number 5, the one that I am guilty of. So I made a video a while back about how I hadn't fished with the strike indicator nymph rig in like 10 years. 100% true. A lot of people, it was a very popular video because people were like, dude, you got to do what you got to do to catch fish. And I admit that is true. And I am not catching fish a lot of times when I could be catching fish if I was willing to use every possible method. So sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do, man. I don't like fishing with a strike indicator and a nymph, but if I did, there's a lot of situations where I would be catching fish when I'm not catching fish with my dry fly dropper rig. I really like catching bass on a popper, but there's a lot of times when they're just not eating poppers. So a streamer, crawfish pattern, throwing a sinking tip line and getting the fly down deep can make the difference between catching them and not catching them. I love sight casting for redfish on the coast, but if the water's high, if it's a really cloudy day, sometimes you just gotta blind cast. So you gotta be willing to try other techniques, maybe not your favorite technique. Now, you can be stubborn like me and not throw a strike indicator nymph rig, and you gotta be okay with getting skunked. I'm fine with it. That is like one of the 5 phases of fly fishing. I made a video about that. I'll link that up there. But really, if you want to go out and catch fish in all types of different situations, you got to be willing to try all types of different methods. For me, that's fly fishing. That's fishing with a dry fly and a dropper, or sight casting. But, you may have to do some other techniques. You may even have to pick up some conventional tackle on occasion. That's up to you. No shame. If you want to catch fish, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. All right, y'all. I hope that this video helps somebody out there. Like I said, if it does, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I really thank you for being here. Hopefully, I will see you in the next video. And in the meantime, good luck on the water.